30 years.
Mario! Mario!
Whenever people think of the longest video game series that Nintendo has, their first thoughts will naturally be Mario, The Legend of Zelda, or maybe even Metroid, which is understandable as they're all over 30-year-long franchises. However, there is another series that just hit its dirty 30s as well, Fire Emblem. With this video, I hope to showcase my love for the series and celebrate its 30th anniversary from the beginning. Intelligent Systems, IS from now forward for brevity, started out as an auxiliary development team for the famed Nintendo R&D1 dev team. Early on, they assisted with many of the NES's most famous and popular games, such as Duck Hunt, Metroid, and even Mario Bros. In 1986, IS broke off from R&D1 with the creator of Metroid, Gunpei Yokoi, and started to develop their own games instead of providing minor optimizations. Following this, they then put out their first game just 2 years later. Appropriately titled Famicom Wars, the game came about when the team wanted to make simulation games instead of dev tools. Famicom Wars was well received, with Famitsu giving it a score of 33 out of 40, and in 1989 was mentioned in their All Soft catalog issue as one of the best games of all time. Gameplay for Famicom Wars involved the player, turn by turn, managing their resources and building their army, whilst the computer, or the opponent player, does the same. Victory of the game is ensured by either army conquering the opposing headquarters or when the entire army is defeated. Like chess, but with extra steps if you were to boil it way down to the bone. A good place to start, I would think. But what if they could do more? What if they could make the player grow attached to their units and give them an RPG experience instead of pure simulation with no story and no impact? The concept for IS's next game was actually pitched and finalized in 1987, 1 year before their first release with Famicom Wars. Game designer Shozo Kaga wanted to take the strategy and simulation aspect of Famicom Wars and marry it with traditional RPG elements, like a story and characters. Quote, "I call it role-playing simulation. It's a new genre. Basically, it's a strategy game, but strategy games typically are kind of hardcore and dry. You only care about winning or losing the battle, and there's no space for the player to empathize with the characters or story." Come April 20th of 1990, Kaga's vision was released into the world as Fire Emblem Angenko Ryu to Hikari no Tsurugi, translated Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, or from here on, just Fire Emblem 1. Other major names on the team included Gunpei Yokoi as producer, music composed by Yuka Sugioka, programmed by Toru Norihara, and directed by Keisuke Terasaki. It received fairly low reviews upon release, with publications citing the game being too difficult to understand and calling the graphics unimpressive. After seeing the gameplay footage of Famicom Wars, I can't necessarily disagree with them. Sales for Fire Emblem 1 were lackluster as a result, but a half year later, with word of mouth and a glowing review by a reputable Famitsu columnist, these factors may have just saved the series from being just a single game. Development for Fire Emblem 1 was slightly troubled merely because of how limited the Famicom's memory was. As such, many things needed to be cut from the final game, like an additional boss fight, graphics for important story scenes, a decrease in graphical quality, and scrapping of multiple scenarios to make the story of the game seem a bit less linear. From the sheer amount of text in the game, IS needed Nintendo's help to create a new chip for the cartridge to display the kanji properly. Taking all this into account, it's no wonder that the game took 3 years to develop. But with everything all said and done, when asked in an interview a few years later if he felt he accomplished what he wanted to do, Shozo Kaga said, "I think I made an RPG that borrows the frame of a strategy game. The battlefield is like a strategy game, but each character is a protagonist in their own right, and you can actually get attached to them, making it closer to an RPG, I think." Fire Emblem 1's gameplay is much akin to Famicom Wars, except there are actual characters. The player is tasked with taking their army across a map, turn by turn, to seize the enemy castle, while protecting the leader of their army, Marth. As you play the game in clear maps, your army expands with all sorts of characters, each with their own individual stats and level up growth rates. Growth rates being that whenever a character levels up, each stat has a fixed percentage chance to increase by 1 point, instead of the character allocating points independently. While Marth is the main character in that if he dies it's a game over, Kaga wanted to design the game so that whomever is the player's favorite character, the story can also revolve around them. This ties into the biggest feature for the series as a whole, permadeath. Permadeath is exactly what it says on the tin. A character dies, and they are then gone for the rest of the game. With the threat of permanent death hanging over all characters, this provides for the player to become more attached to whomever is their favorite, and that every playthrough can be different for everyone. Now the story of Fire Emblem 1 goes something like this. Marth goes into hiding in the nation of Talus after the big bad nation of Dole invades his homeland of Altea. Their forces kill his dad and capture his sister, Elise. After a couple years of preparation, he sets out across the continent of Arcanea to beat back the unified front of the nations of Dole, Macedon, and Grust. Over the course of a year, Marth liberates the countries of Aurelis, Gra, and his homeland of Altea. From there, he goes back on the offensive to Dole to defeat the Wizard Garnef and the Earth Dragon King to bring back light to the land of Arcanea. A simple but sweet enough story to get behind. If you're any bit familiar with the hero's journey, it sticks to that very well. My only critique is that it can be difficult to know exactly what's happening, as all story segments are given in dialogue boxes at the beginning and end of chapters, with no context to the world as a whole except for location names. At least there is a manual for the game that I imagine contains a lot of real nice, neat information, like a map, but you have to be able to find a physical copy of the game and also be able to read Japanese. As stated before with how sales picked up later in the game's life, IS developed a sort of pseudo-sequel to Fire Emblem with Fire Emblem Gaiden in 1992. I say pseudo-sequel because it more acts as a companion to the previous game rather than a continuation. The true sequel wouldn't be until 1994 with Fire Emblem Mystery of the Emblem. Mystery of the Emblem was not only the successor to Fire Emblem 1, but it also had a nearly complete remake of FE1 on the same cartridge. Giving the game SNES level graphics, incorporating updated Mystery of the Emblem game mechanics, and only trimming it down to 20 chapters compared to the first game's 25, it's honestly a technical marvel showing how much more powerful the SNES was compared to the NES. Fire Emblem 1 was eventually remade again 14 years later. This marks it as the only game in the series to technically be released 3 times. Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon was released for the Nintendo DS on August 7, 2008 in Japan, December 5th in Europe, and February 16th in North America. This time it was a full remake. All chapters included, as well as some additional new Gaiden chapters. You can think of these as little optional bonus chapters, usually for completing side objectives. If you were to look at different Fire Emblem forums, you'll find many people that would cite this as their favorite game in the series, and I can understand why. You can customize your units to the most extreme at this point in the series by changing their classes to nearly whatever you'd like, and the difficulty of the game can range from easy to the immensely tough Hard 5 difficulty, for those that want the ultimate challenge.
Okay. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Yes! I did it! I fucking did it! Oh my god!
With enhanced graphics, gameplay, and a better delivered story, I believe it's safe to say Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon is the definitive way to experience Fire Emblem 1. But for me, there's just something charming to see how the first game of this now pillar of a Nintendo franchise played and felt. To see where this series that I love came from, how many things have roots all the way back 30 years ago, and how the series has evolved, for better or for worse. In 2010, a group of fans got together and completed an English translation for ROM files, and I ask you to please give the first game of the series a shot. If only for a couple chapters, you may actually find yourself enjoying it. You never know. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you. You don't need to subscribe. I don't really post much of anything, but leave a like if you can, please. Yeah, just I really wanted to make this video, and I really wanted to get it out on time for Fire Emblem's 30th anniversary. Thank you so much. Have a good one.